So I'm going to assume that by now everybody has seen or at least heard of the PPP, which are the quote emergency loans that the government put out for small businesses and companies for their payroll. Essentially, the PPP loans. Any company could apply for it as long as they had fewer than 500 employees. And the loans are completely forgivable as long as you can show that you spent a total of 80% of the loan on either your payroll or your basic monthly costs like rent and utilities. And this is a plan the government put together sometime in between when they had the banks start pumping $1 trillion a day into the economy and when they gave all of you a single $1,200 check. Remember your $1,200 check? I know, it's been so long, you might have forgotten, so I had to ask. So the PPP, again, the Paycheck Protection Program, gave out all these loans that are forgivable. They were loans and grants, part of the $2 trillion CARES Act, which President Trump signed into law. The loans were designed to help small businesses hurt by the coronavirus pandemic to retain or hire employees. Yet, according to a list of individuals and companies that received loans or grants of more than $150,000, recipients included large companies and billionaires that had access to other sources of capital and have recovered quickly from the pandemic. If you remember, there were stories out that chains such as Shake Shack and others had taken these loans by taking the company and then splitting it apart into a bunch of smaller holdings, and then every holding individually apply for it. And some of the companies actually got shamed and gave the money back. And I hadn't really thought about the PPP since then until I saw this article. And there's a specific reason why this came up. Soho House, the exclusive member of the club, membership club controlled by billionaire Ron Burkle, received loans totaling $9 million to $23 million by applying for 7 loans through its New York, Miami Beach, Chicago, and West Hollywood locations. Last month, Soho House raised $100 million from private investors, including Burkle, that gave the company a valuation of $2 billion, equal to its pre-pandemic valuation. But they needed the money more than you, I assure you. Altogether, more than 400 country clubs and golf resorts received PPP funding. Billionaire developer Joe Farrell, famed for building and renting mega mansions in the Hamptons, received a PP loan of up to $1 million. Farrell made headlines in May when he rented the mega home called the Sandcastle for nearly $2 million for the summer. Greenbrier Hotel, which operates the famed luxury resort in West Virginia, is owned by billionaire West Virginia Governor Jim Justice, received $5 to $10 million. The Greenbrier Sporting Club, part of the residential development next to the hotel, also received $1 to $2 million. And again, the vast majority of these loans do not have to be paid back. They are forgivable as long as you can show the creative banking where 80% of the money you received went into basic overhead and cost, including labor. The most famous billionaire to receive PPP funds is Kanye West. His Yeezy fashion brand received $2 million to $5 million. West has said his brand's worth $3 billion and recently announced a collaboration with Gap that could be worth $100 million or more depending on the company's performance. Private jet companies, which have rebounded quickly and received hundreds of millions of dollars under the aviation program of CARES Act, also got millions in PPP funds. One received $27 million, another received $5 to $10 million. Jetlinks Aviation received $20 million, an additional $5 to $10 million. This is a lot of money. But one of the things that came out of this was that apparently a whole bunch of churches also applied for the PPP. Now, churches pay no tax, and as a result, they can receive no federal funding, because they don't pay into it. It's also why churches are also not supposed to get involved in politics, because it's outside the scope of a house of worship that doesn't need to be taxed because they don't deal with stuff like that. But it's so much worse than that. So, Catholic Church lobbied for taxpayer funds, got $1.4 billion. U.S. Roman Catholic Church used a special and unprecedented exemption from federal rules to amass at least $1.4 billion in taxpayer-backed coronavirus aid, with many millions going to dioceses that have paid huge settlements or sought bankruptcy protection because of clergy sexual abuse cover-ups. The church's haul may have reached or even exceeded $3.5 billion, making a global religious institution with more than 1 billion followers among the biggest winners in the U.S. government's pandemic relief efforts. I need you to take a second and think about that. Churches, which pay no taxes, and have been paying out hundreds of millions of dollars in court settlements because they abuse and molest children, have now gotten money from the Trump administration to stay afloat on the backs of taxpayer dollars during a global pandemic when people have only received a single $1,200 check in 4 months. Houses of worship and faith-based organizations that promote religious beliefs aren't usually eligible for money from U.S. Small Business Administration, but as the economy plummeted, job rates soared, Congress let faith groups and other nonprofits tap into the Paycheck Protection Program, $659 billion fund created to keep Main Street open and Americans employed. By aggressively promoting the payroll program and marshaling resources to help affiliates navigate its shifting rules, Catholic dioceses, parishes, schools, and other ministries have so far received approval for at least 3,500 forgivable loans. I need you to read that sentence again there. By aggressively promoting the payroll program and marshaling resources to help affiliates navigate its shifting rules, Catholic dioceses, parishes, schools, other ministries have so far received approval. Okay? There are literally experts in government grants that were employed by the Catholic Church to do consulting to figure out how they could get the most free money out of the government when they are never supposed to get any money from the government. The Archdiocese of New York, for example, received 15 loans worth at least $28 million just for its top executive offices. Its iconic St. Patrick Cathedral on Fifth Avenue was approved for at least $1 million. In Orange County, California, where a glass cathedral estimated to cost more than $70 million recently opened, their officials working at the complex received 4 loans worth at least $3 million. Again, none of these institutions pay 1 cent in tax. They don't pay property tax. They don't pay payroll tax. Nothing. Every single dollar that they are getting from the American public via Congress and the Trump administration. And elsewhere, a loan of at least $2 million went to the diocese covering Wheeling, Charleston, West Virginia, where a church investigation revealed last year that then Bishop Michael Bransfield embezzled funds and made sexual advances towards young priests. Simply being eligible for low-interest loans was a new opportunity, but the church couldn't have been approved for so many loans, which the government will forgive if they're used for wages, rents, and utilities, without a second break. Religious groups persuaded the Trump administration to free them from a rule that disqualifies an applicant with more than 500 workers. Without this preferential treatment, many Catholic dioceses would have been ineligible because between their head offices, parishes, and other affiliates, their employees exceed that cap. The government grants special dispensation, and that creates a kind of structural favoritism. And that favoritism was worth billions of dollars. The amount that the church collected, between 1.4 and 3.5 billion, is an undercount. The Diocesan Fiscal Management Conference, an organization of Catholic financial officers, because of course, all the Catholic churches across the world combined have their own office of Catholic Church accountants because that's how much revenue they take in while not paying taxes. They surveyed members and reported that about 9,000 Catholic entities received loans. That's nearly 3 times the number of Catholic recipients that the AP could identify. They couldn't find more Catholic beneficiaries because the government's data didn't name recipients of loans of under $150,000, a category which many smaller churches would fall. Even without full accounting, the major beneficiaries of the Paycheck Protection Program were the church, which has also helped companies backed by celebrities, billionaires, state governors, members of Congress. The program is open to all religious groups. Many took advantage. Evangelical advisors to President Donald Trump, including his White House spiritual czar, Paula White-Cain, also received loans. You want to know how many loans that Trump fake Catholic people got? Let's find out. Let's see. The City of Destiny, the Florida church that Trump's personal pastor, Paula White-Cain, calls home, and First Baptist Dallas, led by Trump ally and senior pastor Robert Jeffries, got loans. City of Destiny got between 150 and 350 grand. And Baptist Dallas got between $2 and $5 million. Loan recipients include several churches and organizations connected to allies of Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board, which helped the twice-divorced candidate win over a socially conservative constituency that has proven an essential part of his political base. Jeffries noted that in establishing the relief program, the Trump administration, as well as Congress, not only allowed houses of worship to take part, but, quote, encouraged applications for aid out of an understanding that, quote, the houses of worship are not only ministries, but they're employers. You know, ones that don't pay taxes. Let's see. Checks also went to a school associated with Preston Baptist Church, where senior pastor Jack Graham is a longtime Trump backer, who wrote an op-ed leading to the president's anti-abortion credentials in January. Graham's megachurch has more than 42,000 members. So a lot of Trump people got a lot of money, were encouraged to apply for the funds, and had access to people who actually showed them how to properly apply for the funds to get that money quickly, because it was done on a first-come, first-served basis. And most small businesses, by the time they found out about this, the fund was already dried up, because all the large governments and all government friends and institutions all got the lead on this and were showed how to apply for it and how to maximize the loan applications and the loan amounts, while the vast majority of small businesses around America were sitting around looking at a website trying to figure out what the fuck they were doing. Let's see. Faith and Freedom Coalition, founded by strategist Ralph Reed, got between 150 and 350. So a lot of money went to all these people, including the Catholic Church itself. Okay, so as the church reckoned with its longtime crisis, abuse reports tripled during the year ending June 19th, at nearly 4,500 nationally. Meanwhile, dioceses and religious orders shelled out $282 million. That's last year. $282 million, up from $106 million just 5 years earlier. That's how much they're paying out in sexual abuse claims. Now, once again, all this money is paid by their parishioners. So the parishioners donate money. Orgs and wealthy people donate money to the church. The church then takes that money, puts it into a fund to pay off child rape victims after they've been victimized by a priest. Then what the Catholic Church does is they take those priests, they rotate them to a different diocese, and they don't tell anybody that they've just moved another rapey priest into their area. And because there is no criminal conviction, because the churches give them money to not officially report the crime, then those priests don't have to register as sex offenders when they get moved into the next area. And then the cycle continues. Lather, rinse, repeat. Loan recipients include about 40 dioceses that have spent hundreds of millions of dollars in the past few years paying victims through compensation funds or bankruptcy proceedings. These dioceses were approved for about $200 million, though the value is likely much higher, which, ironically enough, $282 million is how much they shelled out in sex abuse claims. I want you to understand this. Our church had to spend $282 million to pay off the victims of child molestation by priests. And then the Trump administration gave them a clear avenue and guidance as to how to apply for $200 million in loans that they don't have to pay back. Essentially refilling their coffers after paying for priests that raped children. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trump administration is literally taking taxpayer money and laundering it to churches who molested children. Trump 2020.